Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we'll be admiring the majestic world of waterfalls, the magical places where rivers cascade into beautiful lagoons. They turn landscapes into motion, carve stone across millennia, and fill valleys with mist that cools the air. Waterfalls are proof that Earth is dynamic and in a constant state of change. Cliffs retreat, gorges deepen, and whole ecosystems arrange themselves around these iconic landscapes. Some falls roar all year. Others appear for a season, then fade back into silence. There are falls born from glaciers, from volcanoes, from earthquakes, and from time itself. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Allow your mind to settle as your shoulders gently soften. Allow your breathing to slow and let your thoughts begin to drift as we explore these wonders of nature together. Let's begin. The tallest waterfall on Earth is Angel Falls in Venezuela. It pours off the edge of Ollón de Puy, a flat-topped table mountain that rises like a wall above the forest. The drop is so high that the falling water often breaks apart before it reaches the ground. In dry or windy moments, the stream can turn into drifting spray that floats sideways, long before it becomes a river again. Getting there is part of the story. Dense jungle surrounds the Tepuy, and many visitors arrive by river and then hike to viewpoints carved into the green. From a distance, the fall can look impossibly thin, like a white thread stitched to the sky. Up close, it is a reminder that height changes everything. Gravity has time to work, and air becomes part of the plunge. Few places show scale so clearly. Waterfalls are rivers taking a sudden shortcut through gravity. Instead of patiently winding around obstacles, a river sometimes meets a hard edge and drops. That drop is not just a dramatic moment. It is a machine that converts height into motion, heat, sound, and mist. The water accelerates fast, then collides with the pool below and throws energy in every direction. Over time, that constant impact can chisel a notch into solid rock and deepen the basin at the base. The cliff above becomes unstable, then parts of it break away. The river finds the new edge and does it again. This is why waterfalls are rarely permanent fixtures. They are moving events. They migrate, they reshape valleys, and they tell you where the landscape is weakest. When you stand near one, you are listening to erosion happening in real time. Victoria Falls can create its own drifting rainstorm of mist. When the Zambezi River reaches the cliff, it does not fall as one ribbon. It spreads into a wide curtain that crashes into a long gorge. The impact blasts spray upward in thick clouds that can rise far above the rim. Local people call it the smoke that thunders, and the name fits even before you see the drop. On certain days, the mist is so dense that it cools the air and dampens the ground far from the edge. Sunlight can turn that moisture into bright arcs and shifting halos that appear and vanish as you walk. The result feels like weather that belongs to one place only. Forest plants grow where the constant damp allows them to survive. Step away from the spray zone and the world changes again. Iguazu Falls spreads into hundreds of separate drops at once. At the border of Argentina and Brazil, the Iguazu River reaches a fractured edge and breaks into a sprawling maze of cascades. Instead of one main plunge, water threads through islands and rock shelves, then reunites in roaring basins. The most famous section is a curved chasm, often called the Devil's Throat, where huge volumes funnel into a single heaving void. What makes the scene so gripping is the sense of scale in many directions. You can look across and see curtains, veils, and sudden shoots all happening together. The sound is not one note. It is layers of thunder, hiss, and deep rumble. Mist rises from countless impacts, and it feeds the surrounding rainforest that feels almost oversized with life. Standing there, you feel how a river can become a whole landscape. Niagara Falls is not the tallest, but it is relentless. It sits on the Niagara River between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and its power comes from sheer volume. A vast upstream watershed feeds it, so the flow rarely feels timid. There are 3 main sections, and each has a distinct character, from the broad American Falls to the heavy curve of Horseshoe Falls. At night, colored lights often wash the water, and in winter, ice can cling to the edges like a frozen frame around motion. People have been drawn here for centuries, first for the natural spectacle, then for tourism, and then for industry that wanted the force of falling water. The falls also remind you that fame does not require extreme height. Consistency is its own kind of wonder. It keeps pouring, hour after hour, turning a simple drop into one of the most recognized sounds on Earth. Waterfalls can grind rock into sand using swirling plunge pool currents. At the base of a waterfall, water does not just crash and move on. It often spins. The falling jet drives circular currents that trap stones and keep them rolling. As rocks collide, edges chip off and grains are shaved away. Over years, that tumbling can turn large pieces into pebbles, then grit, then fine sand. In some plunge pools, the motion is so consistent that it drills smooth cavities into bedrock. Those round hollows are called potholes, and they can look like giant bowls carved by tools. The tools are the stones themselves. This grinding also changes the river downstream. The sand becomes sediment that can build bars, fill bends, and alter habitats. So the waterfall is not only carving backwards into a cliff, it is manufacturing new material and sending it away. Each grain began as solid rock, then got milled by motion and patience. The mist from waterfalls can carry nutrients into nearby forests. A big waterfall throws more than water into the air. It launches a cloud of tiny droplets, and those droplets can pick up dissolved minerals from the river and fine particles from the splash zone. When that mist settles on leaves and soil, it becomes a steady delivery system. Over time, the area near the falls can support lush growth that stands out from the drier landscape around it. In some places, mosses coat rocks like velvet because they never fully dry. Ferns and shade plants can thrive where they would otherwise struggle. This creates a tight link between the waterfall and the forest. The water shapes the cliff, and the spray shapes the living community beside it. Even insects respond. Moist pockets can become busy with small life that feeds birds and amphibians. If you step through the spray line, you are crossing an invisible border where the waterfall's reach is felt on every surface. A big waterfall can cool the air like natural refrigeration. When water breaks into droplets, it gains surface area, and that matters because evaporation steals heat from the surrounding air. Near a large fall, this effect can be strong enough to feel like stepping into a cooler room. The moving air also helps. The plunge churns wind, and that airflow carries cooler, damp air outward along the river corridor. On hot days, people gather near waterfalls for the same reason they stand near fans. The difference is that the source is pure physics, not machinery. This cooling can influence the local environment in subtle ways. Temperature-sensitive plants may survive closer to the falls than they can elsewhere nearby. Even the feel of sound can change in cooler, denser air. The waterfall becomes a small climate engine, powered only by height and flow. It is one more way a drop in elevation can ripple into the experience of a place. Some waterfalls roar because air is trapped and crushed in water. A waterfall is not just water moving. It is water grabbing air and pulling it down. As the sheet breaks into turbulence, bubbles are forced deep into the plunge and squeezed by pressure. Some collapse violently, and that rapid change sends vibrations through the water and into the rock. At the same time, the impact scatters droplets into a storm of spray. Each droplet collides with others and with the surface below, adding a higher hiss on top of the deeper rumble. The shape of the cliff matters too. A narrow gorge can reflect sound back toward you, while an open bowl lets the roar spread outward. This is why two waterfalls of similar size can sound completely different. Your ears are hearing physics made audible. The roar is energy being lost, moment by moment, as motion becomes waves of sound. Waterfalls can carve deep plunge pools that swallow huge boulders. At the base of a strong fall, the water does not just splash, it drills. The falling jet hits the pool and forces powerful currents to spin, and those currents can pick up rocks and roll them like tools. A large boulder can tumble, grind, and slam into the bedrock again and again. Over years, that churning acts like a natural hammer and chisel, deepening the basin into a plunge pool. In some places, the pool becomes so deep that it looks like dark glass from above, even when the river upstream is clear and bright. During floods, the process intensifies, and fresh blocks can be ripped from the cliff and thrown into the grinder. That is how a waterfall eats its own foundation, then reshapes it. The pool is not decoration. It is the workshop where the cliff is slowly dismantled. A waterfall can slowly march upstream, reshaping an entire valley. This happens through headward erosion, which is a simple idea with huge consequences. The falling water undercuts the rock at the base, then the unsupported lip collapses. Once that edge breaks away, the drop shifts a little farther upstream. Over long spans of time, the waterfall retreats like a moving bite taken out of the land. As it migrates, it can leave behind a steep walled gorge, plus terraces and ledges that mark older positions of the fall. The river above adjusts too. It may steepen, straighten, or cut into fresh layers it never touched before. Even side streams can change as the main valley deepens beside them. What begins as a single drop becomes a traveling sculptor. If you look at a map of a river canyon, a waterfall can be the reason the whole system looks the way it does. It pulls the landscape toward itself. Many famous waterfalls exist because glaciers left hanging valleys behind. During ice ages, massive glaciers filled main valleys and ground them deeper and wider. Smaller tributary glaciers joined in, but they often did not cut as far down. When the ice melted, the main valley floor was left much lower than the side valley. The result is a sudden step where a stream pours out of the tributary and drops into open space. Yosemite is a classic setting for this, where high side valleys send water down into the larger carved trough below. The waterfall is a leftover clue, like a footprint of vanished ice. It tells you where the glacier once flowed and how much rock it removed. You do not need a museum label to sense it. The geometry itself explains the story. A hanging valley is an unfinished join between landscapes, and the waterfall is the sound of that mismatch. Some waterfalls vanish seasonally, then return like nothing changed. In many places, the stream that feeds a fall depends on snowmelt, monsoon rain, or a wet season that lasts only part of the year. When the supply dwindles, the drop can shrink to a thin ribbon, or it can stop entirely and leave a dry cliff. The strange part is how quickly the scene can reset. A strong storm upstream can revive the flow in hours, and the empty rock face becomes a waterfall again. Some seasonal falls run over porous ground that soaks up water during dry months, so the river simply does not reach the edge. Others rely on temporary side channels that only form when the river is high. These shifts make a waterfall feel alive, not like a fixed monument. They also reward timing. People visit expecting a roar and find quiet stone, then return later to meet a completely different world. Waterfalls often begin at a nick point, a sudden change in slope. Picture a river that has been flowing calmly for ages. Then suddenly, it reaches a sharp step in the land. That step might form when the ground is lifted by slow tectonic forces, when sea level drops and the river tries to cut down to match, or when a landslide rearranges the channel in a single day. Once the river meets that break in slope, the water accelerates and starts attacking the edge. The first tiny drop grows because fast water bites harder than slow water. The lip gets undercut, the drop steepens, and a small ledge becomes a true waterfall. A nick point can travel upstream, like a message moving through the landscape. Follow it, and you are tracking change. What looks like scenery is often a moving frontier. Hard rock over soft rock is a recipe for waterfalls. When a river crosses a stack of different rocks, it behaves like a careful tester of strength. A tough layer can resist abrasion and hold its shape, while a weaker layer beneath it wears away faster under the same flow. Over time, the river cuts a notch into the softer rock and leaves the harder layer sticking out like a shelf. Water spills off that shelf, and the drop becomes more defined as the underlayer continues to retreat. This is why waterfalls often sit at the boundary between rock types. You are seeing a strength contest frozen into a cliff edge. It also explains why some falls have clean lips and sharp edges, while others crumble into messy cascades. The rock is deciding the choreography. In places with basalt over softer sediments, the contrast can be dramatic enough to build a tall, stubborn ledge that lasts for centuries. When soft rock erodes, the cliff edge becomes an overhang. At first, the waterfall looks stable, like it has always been there. Then, the hidden work begins. The falling water attacks the base, and the weaker rock behind the curtain starts to hollow out. Bit by bit, the cliff face retreats underneath the stronger cap. The edge above keeps projecting outward, which creates a growing overhang. From the top, the river still seems to flow normally, but the support is being stolen from beneath it. This is the quiet tension you can feel when you stand near a fall and look at the lip. The cliff is no longer a simple wall. It is a loaded spring. Cracks widen, blocks loosen, and sometimes you can see fresh scars where pieces have already fallen away. The overhang is a promise that the scene will change. Overhangs eventually collapse, and the waterfall jumps upstream again. There is a moment when the rock can no longer pretend it is solid. The undercut space grows, the cap rock fractures, and gravity claims the overhang in a sudden fall of its own. What drops is not just stone. It is the old position of the waterfall, removed in one violent step. The river instantly finds the new edge behind the collapse, and the plunge relocates upstream. This is how waterfalls migrate, not by sliding smoothly, but by repeating a cycle of carving and breaking. The collapse can leave a fresh cliff face that looks raw and bright compared to older weathered rock. It can also pile rubble into the plunge pool, changing the sound and the spray pattern for a while. If you visit the same waterfall across decades, you may be watching a slow march made of sudden leaps. The retreat of a waterfall can expose brand new rock layers. As a waterfall moves upstream, it peels the landscape open, like pages turning. Layers that were once hidden behind a cliff face become visible, and each layer carries clues about a different chapter of Earth's past. In some places, you can see ancient river gravels pressed into stone, or dark bands laid down in long vanished seas. In others, the rock records volcanic eruptions, each flow stacked on the next like cooled waves. When the waterfall cuts back, Those layers are revealed in fresh cross-section, and the story becomes readable even to an untrained eye. Colors shift from one band to the next, textures change, and you can sometimes spot lines where erosion prefers to bite. This is why waterfalls attract geologists. They are natural road cuts, but louder and more dramatic. Every retreat redraws the boundary between what is buried and what is seen. Some waterfalls cut narrow gorges that look impossible from above. From a viewpoint, the river may seem harmless, just a ribbon threading through trees. Then you step closer and the ground falls away into a slot of stone. Waterfalls can carve these gorges because the drop focuses energy into a small area, and the river below becomes steep and fast. As the waterfall retreats, it leaves a trench behind it, sometimes with walls so close that sunlight reaches the bottom only in brief slices. These gorges can feel like secret corridors, shaped by a single moving edge. In places like Watkins Glen in New York, small falls have carved winding passages that look hand-built. The illusion comes from patience. Water does not need brute strength all at once. It needs time, repeat motion, and a weak point to exploit. The gorge is the footprint of that persistence. It proves that a river can cut downward as neatly as if it had a plan. Waterfalls can keep small spray zones green during drought. When rainfall disappears for weeks, many landscapes turn dusty and stressed. Near some waterfalls, a different story continues. Constant spray can dampen soil, cope leaves, and slow down water loss from plants. This creates a small refuge where life holds on while the wider area struggles. The contrast can be striking. Step a short distance away and you may find dry grasses and brittle ground. Step back toward the mist and the air feels wetter, and the vegetation looks refreshed. These pockets can protect seedlings that would otherwise fail, and they can shelter insects that become food for birds and small mammals. In dry regions, such micro-refuges matter. They preserve diversity until wetter seasons return. They also show how a waterfall is not only a feature you look at. It is a living influence with a measurable footprint. The green zone marks the reach of falling water in a year that forgot to rain. Waterfall spray creates tiny rainbows when sun angles align. A rainbow here is not painted on the sky. It is built in the air right in front of you, from millions of droplets drifting through sunlight. Each droplet bends the light, reflects it inside, then sends it back out in a slightly different direction. When you stand in the right place, the colors snap into view like a secret, but only works from one angle. Step to the left, and it fades. Step to the right, and it returns. Near a powerful fall, you can sometimes see multiple arcs at once, including faint extra bands that appear when light bounces more than once inside the drops. Photographers chase these moments, but you do not need a camera to feel the thrill. It is physics doing something that looks like magic. The waterfall supplies the droplets. The sun supplies the spotlight. You supply the perfect viewpoint. In winter, spray can build ice sculptures that change daily. When temperatures stay below freezing, the mist that would usually vanish into air begins to settle and freeze wherever it lands. A railing becomes thicker overnight. A rock ledge grows a white fringe. Nearby trees can turn into glittering sculptures, each branch layered in ice like glass. These shapes are not carved by hands. They are built by repeated tiny impacts, droplet after droplet, hour after hour. Wind changes the direction of the spray, so the ice can grow sideways, upward, or into strange, hoped forms. A warmer afternoon can soften the outer layer, then a cold night locks it back into a new texture. This is why winter waterfalls can look different every day. The water is still moving, but the world around it is being decorated by the mist. It feels like watching weather become architecture. Some waterfalls freeze into silent curtains while water still flows inside. From a distance, it can look like the waterfall has stopped, as if time has been turned off. Up close, you may notice a faint shimmer behind the ice and a muffled sound that hints at motion. The outer layer freezes first because spray and thin sheets lose heat quickly. Once that shell forms, it can act like insulation. Liquid water can keep running behind it, protected from the cold air by the ice itself. Sometimes the flow finds narrow tunnels and emerges in sudden bursts, then vanishes again under the frozen surface. This creates a strange double world. The waterfall becomes both solid and moving at once. It is a reminder that freezing is not always a simple switch from wet to dry. It can be a layered process with hidden rivers inside ice walls, still obeying gravity in the dark. Waterfalls can generate waterfall winds as air rushes toward the drop. Stand near a large fall and you may feel air pulling past you, even on a calm day. Falling water drags surrounding air downward, like a moving conveyor that cannot help but grab what is nearby. That downward rush leaves a kind of empty space that nearby air tries to fill, so wind flows toward the plunge. At the same time, the impact at the base throws mist upward, which can create swirling patterns that change second by second. This is why spray can drift in surprising directions, and why the sound can seem to wrap around you. The wind is not random. It is driven by the waterfall's motion and shaped by cliffs, gorges, and riverbanks. In a narrow canyon, it can feel like a steady breath aimed straight at the drop. In a wide amphitheater, it can spin into eddies but make the air feel alive. The pounding at the base can shake the ground like a tremor. A heavy waterfall hits with repeated force, and that force has to go somewhere. Part of it becomes sound. Part of it becomes turbulence. Another part travels into the rock as vibrations. If you stand on firm ground close to a major plunge, you may feel a faint shudder under your feet, like distant thunder you can touch. In some places, sensitive instruments can record these signals as a continuous seismic hum. It is not an earthquake in the usual sense, but the effect is real. The waterfall is acting like a steady drumbeat, striking the same spot over and over, day and night. During high flow, the impacts grow stronger, and the vibration can change in character. This subtle shaking is a reminder that landscapes are not silent structures. They can carry motion through stone. The river is not only carving the valley, it is also making the ground feel alive. Waterfalls can be loud enough to mask speech at close range. The sound is not just volume. It is a wall of noise that fills the space between you and another person. Even if someone is only a few steps away, words can vanish because the roar covers the same range of sound that speech uses. Your brain tries to pick out syllables, but the waterfall keeps interrupting with bursts of broad, rushing noise. That can feel thrilling, but it can also feel strangely private. People sometimes find themselves speaking closer, using gestures, or simply giving up and listening. This masking effect changes how you experience the place. Conversation becomes less important. Attention shifts to vibration, rhythm, and the way the roar rises and falls with gusts of spray. It can even affect animals. Some birds choose nesting spots near loud water because predators may struggle to hear their calls. A waterfall does not only dominate the view, it dominates the soundscape too. The sound of falling water is a mix of many frequencies. What you hear as a single roar is really a layered orchestra. Deep rumbles can come from large volumes colliding and from resonant spaces in the rock and water below. Higher hisses often come from spray, foam, and countless tiny impacts as droplets strike surfaces. In between, there are shifting tones created by churning bubbles and changing turbulence. This is why a recording of a waterfall can sound rich and textured, rather than like a simple hiss. The exact mix depends on the shape of the lip, the height of the drop, and what the water hits at the bottom. A wide curtain can create a broad, steady roar. A narrow jet can add sharper, more piercing notes. Wind can push the spray, which changes what reaches your ears. If you listen carefully, you can hear patterns within the noise, like pulses and swells that reveal the waterfall's internal rhythm. The roar changes with flow, so the waterfall has moods. After heavy rain, the sound can become heavier and more aggressive, with a deeper bass note that seems to press against your chest. During low flow, the roar can thin out and reveal details. You might hear separate threads of water striking different ledges, or the clatter of small stones being pushed along. Seasonal changes can also alter the timing. Snowmelt might make the fall strongest during the day, then slightly softer at night. Dry spells can turn a once solid curtain into many separate ribbons, which changes both the look and the tone. Even within a single hour, gusts of wind can shape the spray and shift what sound reaches you. This variety makes waterfalls feel alive, not mechanical. They do not play the same note forever. They respond to weather, temperature, and the river upstream. When you revisit a waterfall, you are meeting a familiar place in a different state of mind. Waterfalls can oxygenate water, helping some fish survive. When water plunges and churns, it mixes with air and dissolves oxygen into the river. That extra oxygen can be crucial in warm weather, when water naturally holds less gas, and some stretches of river become stressful for aquatic life. Below a waterfall, you can sometimes find a zone where conditions improve, with cooler mixing and higher oxygen that supports fish and the insects they feed on. This does not mean every waterfall is a safe haven. It depends on the whole river system. Still, the basic effect is powerful. The fall acts like a natural aerator, like the bubbles in an aquarium but on a grand scale. It can also influence smell and clarity, because oxygen supports different chemical reactions in water. For creatures that breathe through gills, oxygen is not a luxury. It is the difference between thriving and merely enduring. A waterfall can quietly tip that balance in the river's favor. Too much plunge turbulence can also stress delicate aquatic life. The same churning that adds oxygen can become a hazard for animals that prefer calmer water. Violent turbulence can disorient small fish and larvae, and it can sweep them into areas where they struggle to feed or rest. Fine sediments can also be stirred up repeatedly near the base, which may make the water cloudy and interfere with species that hunt by sight. In extreme cases, strong hydraulic currents can trap objects and keep them circulating, which creates a dangerous zone for anything caught inside. This is why many river creatures choose edges, side pools, and sheltered pockets, rather than the most chaotic water. They take advantage of what the waterfall provides, but they avoid what it threatens. Nature often works through trade-offs like this. A waterfall can enrich a river in one way and challenge it in another. The living community that forms nearby is shaped by that balance, choosing niches that fit their strengths. Waterfalls can block fish migrations, shaping entire ecosystems upstream. A waterfall can act like a locked door in a river, and that single barrier can reorganize life for miles. Fish that cannot jump or climb are stopped, so the upstream community becomes a different neighborhood with different rules. Predators that rely on migrating fish may be rarer above the drop, while smaller species can become more common because the food web shifts. Even nutrients can change. When fewer migrating animals reach the upper river, less energy arrives from downstream, so insects, plants, and fish must rely more on what the local watershed provides. Over many generations, isolation can also change behavior. Populations above a barrier may spawn at different times or feed in different places because they are not mixing with the lower river anymore. The waterfall becomes an invisible line on a map of biology, drawn by gravity and height. Some fish evolved to climb wet rocks beside waterfalls. In certain islands and mountain streams, a waterfall is not the end of the road. It is an obstacle course. Some gobies, for example, can use a mouth shaped like a suction cup to cling to slick stone. They inch upward in short bursts, gripping, releasing, and gripping again, while rushing water tries to peel them away. This climb is not a party trick. It lets them reach upstream habitats with fewer predators and cleaner flow. In Hawaii, several native goby species are known for this upstream journey, moving from the ocean into steep streams as they grow. The climb can happen at night or in shaded sections where the rock stays wet. It is a reminder that evolution does not only build bigger muscles or sharper teeth. Sometimes it builds better grip, better timing, and the stubborn ability to keep going when the river says no. Freshwater eels can wriggle up slick surfaces near falls. Eels look like they belong in water only, but their bodies can do surprising things in the thin film of moisture beside a waterfall. With strong, flexible muscles and a coating of mucus that helps prevent drying, some species can push forward across wet rock, through moss, and along cracks where water seeps. They do not leap like salmon. They creep, using their whole body like a living rope. This ability matters because many eels have long life cycles that include ocean travel and freshwater growth. To reach the best upstream feeding grounds, they sometimes must pass obstacles that would stop other fish. The route is not always the main torrent. It can be a narrow side trickle, a damp wall, or a shaded slope where droplets keep the skin from drying out. The climb is quiet, but it is epic. In some rivers, salmon rest in calmer pools below falls. A waterfall can be a wall for a migrating salmon, but it can also be a staging area. Before a jump, salmon often hold in deeper, slower pools where they can recover from the effort of fighting current. These pools let them gather strength, regulate body temperature, and wait for the right moment. Timing matters because water level changes the odds. After rain, the lip may be easier to clear, while during low flow, the jump can become risky or impossible. You can sometimes watch a pattern. Fish hover, drift back, then surge forward, testing the current like athletes studying a course. Predators may patrol too, which adds urgency. What looks like a simple leap is actually a decision made under pressure, using energy that must last for the entire migration. The pool below the fall becomes a waiting room filled with tension and determination. Waterfalls can create natural boundaries that promote unique species. When a barrier divides a river, it can split a population into two groups that rarely meet. Over long stretches of time, that separation can lead to unusual results. The upstream group may adapt to colder water, faster flow, or different prey, while the downstream group faces a different set of challenges. Eventually, the two groups can become distinct enough that scientists recognize them as separate species or subspecies. This happens most often in places with many steep streams, like tropical mountains and oceanic islands, where barriers are common and habitats change quickly. With elevation, a waterfall can also protect what is above it. Invasive species that spread upstream may be stopped, which gives native animals a refuge. The boundary is not drawn by fences or laws. It is drawn by height, slick rock, and the simple difficulty of moving against a falling river. Isolated pools near falls can become miniature evolutionary laboratories. Near some waterfalls, you find pools that are cut off for long periods, like natural aquariums tucked into stone. A flood might connect them for a day, then the link disappears and the pool becomes its own small world again. In that isolation, chance matters more. A few survivors can become the founders of a new population, carrying only a slice of the original genetic variety. Over generations, the pool can favor traits that fit its exact conditions, like tolerance for colder water, darker light, or limited food. The result can be striking. You might find fish with different colors, different sizes, or different behaviors compared with the main river. Scientists love these settings because the boundaries are clear and the timeline can be traced through geology and flow. The pool is small, but the story it tells is enormous. It shows how landscapes can steal life without anyone noticing. Mosses and ferns often thrive where constant spray keeps them wet. Step close to a waterfall and you enter a zone where moisture arrives not only from rain, but from the air itself. Mosses can take advantage because they do not need deep roots to drink. They can absorb water directly across their surfaces, so a steady mist is like a continuous supply line. Ferns join them, especially in shaded crevices where sunlight is softer and drying winds are blocked. Over time, these plants can form living carpets on rock, turning bare stone into a soft green skin. That vegetation changes the micro-world again. It traps dust, holds tiny pockets of soil, and creates shelter for insects and small amphibians. In places like cloud forests, waterfall spray can make these communities even denser, with leaves that stay glossy and hydrated. The waterfall is not only cutting rock, it is also building habitat, one wet breath at a time. Waterfall cliffs can shelter rare plants from heat and grazing. A cliff near a waterfall can be a harsh place to stand, but it can be a safe place to live. The rock face is often steep enough that large grazing animals cannot reach it, so plants that would be eaten elsewhere can survive. The nearby water can also moderate temperature. Spray and shade reduce heat stress during the hottest parts of the day, and cool air tends to settle in the gorge. Some plants take advantage of this refuge, clinging to cracks where a thin line of moisture seeps. These can include unusual orchids, delicate mosses, and small flowering species that are absent from the surrounding slopes. In certain regions, rare endemic plants are found only in these protected cliff niches, almost like they are hiding in plain sight. The waterfall creates a natural fortress with its own climate and its own rules, and the plant community can become a living catalogue of survivors. Birds sometimes nest behind waterfalls for protection from predators. Behind a strong sheet of falling water, there can be a sheltered space where the rock is recessed and the air stays damp. For some birds, that hidden ledge is worth the challenge. Predators have trouble reaching it, and the noisy curtain can mask the sounds of chicks. In places like Iceland, waterfall ledges are known nesting spots for species that tolerate spray and cold air. The location can also reduce competition. Few animals want to raise young where everything is wet and loud, so a bird that can handle those conditions gains a private nursery. Building a nest there requires careful choices. Materials must hold together when soaked, and parents must land with precision on slick rock. The reward is a protected pocket in a dramatic place. When you notice a bird slipping through the falling water, it feels like spotting a secret passage. The waterfall becomes both barrier and shelter, depending on who you are. Swiftlets and swallows use waterfall air currents like highways. Where water drops, air moves. Updrafts form along cliffs, and swirling currents develop as mist rises and cools the surrounding space. Fast-flying birds can take advantage of this, especially insect hunters like swallows and swiftlets. Instead of flapping constantly, they can ride the moving air, banking and looping with sharp turns that would be costly in still conditions. The spray zone can also be rich in tiny insects drawn to moisture and plant growth, which turns the area into a busy feeding corridor. Some birds skim close to the cliff, then arc outward and return, repeating the route like a practiced dance. In caves and sheltered overhangs near waterfalls, swiftlets may roost, using the same airflow to launch quickly into flight. Watching them, you see how a waterfall shapes not only rock and water, but the very way animals move through space. Waterfalls can form where lava flows created hard basalt ledges. After an eruption, lava can spread across a landscape and cool into basalt, which is often tougher than the layers beneath it. Later, a river arrives and begins cutting down through the stack. The softer material gives way first, while the basalt resists like a stubborn cap. That mismatch can leave a sharp step, and the river spills over it into open air. In places like Iceland and parts of the Pacific Northwest, you can see waterfalls that owe their very existence to ancient eruptions that ended long before any human arrived. It is a strange kind of time travel. The water looks alive and immediate, yet the stage it performs on was poured out as molten rock. Each plunge is the river testing old lava, and the lava still holds its ground. Columnar basalt near falls can look like a stone organ. When thick basalt cools, it can crack into columns as it shrinks. The fractures often form a pattern of long, straight pillars that can be 5-sided or 6-sided, stacked tightly like bundled pencils. If a waterfall slices through that rock, the cliff can resemble a giant set of pipes, each column catching light and shadow differently as spray drifts past. Some cliffs even seem to have steps and ledges, not because they were carved by tools, but because the rock split in an orderly way while it cooled. Visit a place like Waterfalls in Iceland, and the effect is unforgettable. The waterfall becomes a moving curtain in front of a geometric wall. It feels like nature tried architecture for a moment, then let the river provide the music. Limestone waterfalls can build terraces from travertine deposits. Some waterfalls do more than erode. They can also construct. In limestone landscapes, water often carries dissolved minerals, and the chemistry can change as the water splashes and mixes with air. When conditions are right, calcium carbonate begins to precipitate and settle, slowly building ridges and steps. Over time, these deposits can form terraced pools that look like staircases filled with pale blue water. Places like Pamukkale in Turkey show how dramatic this can become, though many smaller examples exist in limestone regions around the world. The terraces create many tiny drops instead of one big plunge, and each lip becomes a new place for minerals to accumulate. It is a rare twist in the waterfall story. Instead of removing rock, the water is turning dissolved stone back into solid form. Those terraces grow as minerals precipitate from splashing carbonated water. As water travels through limestone, it can pick up carbon dioxide and dissolve calcium carbonate, almost like it is carrying invisible stone. When it reaches a waterfall, it is suddenly agitated. It splashes, it foams, and it releases some of that carbon dioxide into the air. With less carbon dioxide dissolved, the water can no longer hold as much calcium carbonate, so the mineral starts to come out of solution and settle. Tiny crystals coat surfaces, then layer upon layer builds up into rounded rims and shallow basins. Algae and microbes can help by providing surfaces for crystals to cling to, which speeds the building. What looks like frozen milk or bleached coral is actually new rock forming in real time. If you return after years, edges may have thickened and pools may have shifted. The waterfall is acting like a slow stone printer. Some waterfalls run over granite polished smooth by ancient glaciers. Granite can be rough when it breaks, but glaciers can sand it down like enormous moving sheets of grit. As ice drags rocks across the bed, it scrapes, grinds, and leaves behind smooth domes and clean slopes. Later, when the ice retreats, streams may pour over these sculpted surfaces and create waterfalls that slide and fan rather than drop cleanly. In places like Yosemite, you can stand on bright granite and feel how the stone has been planed by forces that moved like slow rivers of ice. The waterfall becomes the newest layer of motion on top of an older one. Water traces paths that glaciers prepared, following grooves and curves that were carved long ago. The result is a kind of duet across time, with ice shaping the stage and water keeping the performance going. Sandstone waterfalls can sculpt delicate alcoves and natural amphitheaters. Sandstone often erodes in ways that feel almost artistic. The grains can be worn away by spray, dripping water, and wind-driven moisture, which can hollow out sheltered spaces behind and beside a fall. Over time, those hollows can widen into alcoves, and alcoves can expand into bowl-shaped amphitheaters with smooth, curving walls. Stand in one, and the sound can change, bouncing around the stone and making the waterfall feel closer than it is. In places like Zion and the Colorado Plateau, you can find falls that seem to pour into sculpted chambers with streaks of color on the walls where minerals have been carried by water. The beauty is not accidental. It is a record of which surfaces stayed wet, which dried quickly, and where the spray kept returning. The waterfall is carving space, not just cutting down. Waterfalls over shale often retreat quickly because shale breaks easily. Shale is made from fine sediments compressed into thin layers, and those layers can split like pages when water gets into them. If a waterfall forms on shale, the rock may crumble and shear rather than hold a clean edge. That makes the lip unstable, and the drop can migrate upstream faster than it would in tougher stone. After heavy rain, blocks can detach and slide, changing the shape of the fall in ways that feel sudden. The waterfall might look jagged, with many small ledges and rough steps, because the rock does not resist evenly. This faster retreat can create a landscape that feels raw and actively changing, with fresh fragments at the base and new scar lines on the cliff. It is a reminder that not all waterfalls age at the same pace. The river's power matters, but the rock's weakness can matter more. Waterfalls can reveal fossils where rivers slice into old seabeds. Sometimes a waterfall is a window into a world that had no rivers at all. In regions where rock layers were once ocean floor, a river cutting a cliff can expose ancient shells, coral fragments, or the rippled textures of long-vanished shorelines. As the waterfall retreats, it keeps revealing fresh surfaces, and those surfaces can hold fossils that were hidden inside the rock for millions of years. The thrill is that the evidence is not stored in a museum case. It is embedded in the cliff wall, right beside rushing water. You might see a spiral shape in limestone, or a bed of small shells packed together like a forgotten beach. A waterfall can make these finds easier because it strips away soil and vegetation, leaving clean exposures. The living river becomes a guide to deep time, showing you that this landscape has been many landscapes. Some waterfalls hide caves formed by relentless spray and erosion. Behind a waterfall, the rock can be attacked from an angle that most cliffs never experience. Spray keeps the surface wet, and wet rock can weather faster, especially if it contains minerals that break down when soaked and dried again. At the same time, the falling water can undercut the base, creating space behind the curtain. Over years, a shallow recess can deepen into a walkable cave, and the waterfall becomes a doorway of moving water. People love these places because they feel impossible, like standing inside the scene instead of watching it. The cave is not always safe, since rock can be unstable and surfaces can be slick, but the formation itself is a powerful idea. Water is not only falling in front of you, it is shaping the wall behind it. The hidden chamber is proof that the waterfall has been working in 3 dimensions. Behind many falls, rock is hollowed by backspray abrasion. When a waterfall hits the base, it launches mist and droplets back toward the cliff, and those droplets can carry tiny grains of sand and grit. Over time, that backspray acts like sandpaper delivered in endless bursts. It roughens surfaces, enlarges cracks, and helps carve shallow scoops into the wall behind the falling sheet. If the rock is layered or fractured, the abrasion can exploit weaknesses and deepen pockets more quickly in certain spots. This is one reason some waterfalls develop broad recesses and overhangs that seem larger than you would expect from the main flow alone. The action is subtle in any single moment, but it never stops. It also creates a special zone for life, since damp, shaded rock can host lichens and mosses that avoid direct sun. The waterfall is shaping its own backdrop, using spray as a tool. Plunge pools can deepen because water jets focus energy downward. When a waterfall drops as a tight jet, it behaves less like a splash and more like a drilling tool. The falling column stays coherent for long enough to strike the pool with concentrated force, and that force drives fast downward currents that scour the bottom. If the pool contains cobbles or gravel, the jet can keep them moving, and moving stone becomes a grinding wheel. You can sometimes see the evidence in the shape of the basin. The deepest point is often not at the shoreline. It is where the jet lands most often. During floods, the jet may shift slightly, and the deepest zone can migrate too. This is why some plunge pools feel mysterious, almost too deep for the size of the stream that feeds them. The waterfall is aiming its power, and the rock below pays the price. The strongest erosion often happens slightly behind the falling sheet. It sounds counterintuitive, but the most intense wear is not always where the water first hits. As the sheet plunges, it pulls air with it and creates a turbulent zone that can slam back into the cliff. That return flow can force water into cracks and weak layers, and it keeps surfaces wet in a way that speeds weathering. Imagine a constant cycle of impact, rebound, and suction, all happening in the same hidden pocket. Over time, that pocket can widen into a recess, and the lip above becomes more unstable because its support is being removed from behind. This is why some waterfalls develop a curved hollow that you can almost step into, even when the main curtain looks smooth from the front. The waterfall is attacking its own back wall, and the cliff can fail from the inside out. A waterfall can split into ribbons when rock has many joints. Some cliffs are cut by natural fractures, like a loaf of bread already sliced. When water reaches the edge, it follows those breaks because they offer the easiest path. Instead of one clean curtain, the flow separates into narrow streams that weave around protruding blocks. Each ribbon finds its own route, and the pattern can change after storms as small channels deepen and others clog with debris. The result is a waterfall that looks braided in the air, with dry rock showing between threads of water. This splitting also changes how the cliff erodes. Each ribbon can carve its own tiny notch, which can slowly widen the whole lip. In places with blocky basalt or jointed sandstone, ribbon falls can feel like a dozen waterfalls sharing one wall, each with a distinct voice and rhythm. Braided waterfalls can appear after floods rearrange channels upstream. A flood does not need to destroy a waterfall to redesign it. Upstream, high water can move logs, roll boulders, and shift gravel bars like furniture being pushed across a floor. When the river settles, the main current may no longer aim at the same spot on the lip. It might divide around a new island, or it might spread into several shallow channels that reach the edge in parallel. That is when a single plunge can become multiple strands, each one carrying a different share of the flow. Some strands may be temporary, lasting only until the next big storm clears the blockage that created them. Others can persist for years if the new channel becomes stable. This is one reason waterfalls can surprise repeat visitors. The name on the map stays the same, but the architecture of water has been edited by a single night of powerful flow. Some waterfalls look white because bubbles scatter light in froth. When water crashes and churns, it traps countless tiny bubbles, and each bubble has a boundary that bends and reflects light. Instead of light passing straight through, it bounces around and gets scattered back toward your eyes. That scattered light blends into a bright, milky white, especially where foam is thickest. This is why a clear stream can suddenly look like whipped cream the moment it tumbles over a ledge. The whiteness often marks the most turbulent zones, like the base of the drop or a rough section of rapids below. If the water smooths out, the bubbles rise and pop, and the river can return to transparent again. The waterfall is briefly turning water into a cloud you can touch, using air as the ingredient that changes everything. A thin waterfall can look transparent when water hugs the cliff. Not all waterfalls leap into space. Some slide. When flow is low or the rock face is angled, water can cling tightly to the surface and spread into a thin film. In that form, it may not create much foam, and without foam, there is less light scattering. The rock's color shows through, and the water can seem almost invisible until it catches a glint of sun. This clinging behavior depends on surface texture and the way water sticks to itself and to stone. A smoother face can encourage a continuous sheet, while a rough face breaks the film into threads. These delicate falls can feel intimate. You notice details, like how the water traces grooves, how it gathers into beads, then reunites lower down. It is still a waterfall, but it behaves more like flowing glass than a crashing curtain. Waterfall shape depends on rock fracture patterns and river volume. Two waterfalls can share the same height and still look completely different, because the lip is a negotiation between stone and flow. If rock is heavily fractured, water can find many weak points, and the edge becomes uneven, with multiple chutes. If the rock is more uniform, the lip may form a cleaner line. Then, volume steps in. A high-volume river can overwhelm small irregularities and create a broad curtain, while a smaller stream may pick one channel and deepen it into a narrow drop. Seasonal shifts can reveal this tug-of-war. In wet months, a fall may widen and smooth out. In dry months, it may break into separate streams that expose the underlying structure of the cliff. The shape you see is not a fixed design. It is a snapshot of current flow meeting a particular kind of rock, in a landscape that is always being revised. Tall falls can break into mist before reaching the bottom. When a waterfall drops far enough, air resistance becomes part of the story. The falling water accelerates, then begins to tear itself apart. Small ripples grow into breaks, and breaks become a spray of droplets. Wind can grab that spray and push it sideways, which can make the lower part of the fall drift like smoke. This mid-air breakup changes how the bottom behaves too. A solid jet strikes like a hammer, but a cloud of droplets spreads the impact across a wider area. The sound shifts, often becoming more hiss than boom. From a distance, very tall falls can look thinner than they really are because much of the water is no longer a single sheet, it is suspended as mist. Angel Falls is famous for this effect, especially when conditions are dry. A tall fall can feel like water learning a new phase, part liquid and part weather. That mid-air breakup changes how erosion happens at the base. When water arrives as a jet, it can gouge and excavate with focused force. When it arrives as dispersed droplets, the impact is gentler but broader, and the wear can spread across ledges and walls rather than drilling one deep point. Droplets also keep more rock surfaces wet, which can speed chemical weathering in certain stones, especially where minerals are already prone to breaking down. The plume can carry fine grit that sands the cliff face over time, smoothing corners and enlarging shallow hollows. This means a waterfall that breaks up early may sculpt a different kind of amphitheater than one that stays coherent. The base may become wider, the splash zone may extend farther, and the patterns of retreat can shift. In a sense, the waterfall's flight determines its chisels. If the water reaches the bottom as a cloud, it works like a spray tool. If it lands as a spear, it works like a drill. Waterfalls can shrink as rivers are diverted or glaciers retreat. A waterfall depends on supply, and supply can change faster than people expect. When water is diverted for hydropower, irrigation, or city use, the drop may lose its dramatic volume and become a thin ribbon. In some places, dams smooth out seasonal surges, which can make a waterfall look tamer year-round. Climate also plays a role. Waterfalls fed by glaciers can fade as ice retreats, because the summer melt that once powered them becomes smaller and shorter. Even if the cliff stays, the performance changes. Some famous falls now have viewing seasons when the flow is best, and quieter months when the rock is more visible than the water. This can feel sad, but it also makes the waterfall a measuring stick for change. It is an easy signal that you can hear and see. When a waterfall shrinks, it is often telling you about the upstream story of human choices and shifting climate. Some waterfalls are born when landslides suddenly dam a river. A mountainside can fail in a single hour, and a river can be forced to obey instantly. When a landslide piles rock and soil across a channel, the water backs up into a new lake. It rises until it finds a weakness, and that new spillway can drop abruptly over the fresh debris. What follows can look like a waterfall that appeared overnight, because it did. These newborn falls are often unstable. The dam is made of loose material, so water can cut into it quickly, widen the outlet, and change the drop from week to week. Sometimes the dam holds for years, and the waterfall becomes a semi-permanent landmark with a lake above it. Sometimes the dam fails suddenly, and the waterfall vanishes in the same dramatic way it arrived. It is landscape change you can watch within a human lifetime. New waterfalls can appear after earthquakes shift river channels. An earthquake can lift one side of a valley, drop another, or crack the ground into steps. If a river crosses one of those fresh steps, it can gain a brand new drop without any slow erosion needed. The first days can be startling. Water pours over raw rock and broken earth, and the river begins sculpting the new edge immediately. In some cases, quake-triggered landslides also block the old route, so the river is forced into a new channel that includes a sudden plunge. Geologists sometimes return to a familiar site and find a waterfall where none existed before, then study it as a natural experiment. The river will respond fast, cutting into weak zones and stabilizing its course. A new waterfall is a visible reminder that the ground under a river is not fixed. It can be rearranged in moments, and water will adapt the same day. Waterfalls can disappear when sediment fills the plunge pool. A plunge pool can act like a bowl that is constantly being stirred, but it can still be overwhelmed by incoming sediment. After storms, landslides, or volcanic ash falls, a river may carry so much sand and gravel that the basin begins to fill faster than it can be scoured. As the pool shallows, the waterfall loses its dramatic drop. The impact becomes more like a fast slide, and the roar can soften because the water no longer strikes deep water. If enough material piles up, the river can build a ramp right up to the lip, and the waterfall becomes rapids or a small cascade instead. This can happen surprisingly quickly, especially in steep landscapes that shed debris easily. It is a good reminder that waterfalls need both a cliff and a way to clear their own landing zone. When the landing zone fills, the waterfall can be smothered. Volcanic eruptions can reroute rivers and create sudden new drops. Volcanoes rewrite drainage like a giant hand moving pieces on a board. Lava can pour into a valley and block a river, forcing water to find a new path around the flow. Ash and debris can raise the land surface, which changes slopes and sends streams into unfamiliar directions. When a river is redirected onto a fresh lava edge or over a new cliff, a waterfall can form almost immediately. The rock may still be young and fractured, so the new drop can evolve fast as water exploits cracks. In some places, the new waterfall becomes a lasting feature because basalt can be tough and it holds a sharp lip for a long time. In other places, loose volcanic debris is quickly carved, and the waterfall shifts position as channels stabilize. Either way, the spectacle is a meeting of two forces that rarely share the same stage. Fire builds the obstacle. Water chooses the exit. In limestone landscapes, streams can vanish underground before reaching a fall. In landscapes made of soluble limestone, water does not always stay on the surface. It can seep into cracks, widen them, and eventually create hidden tunnels large enough to swallow a stream. A channel that looks healthy upstream may thin out as it approaches a cliff, then vanish into a sinkhole or a fractured bed. To someone waiting for a waterfall, it can feel like a trick. The river seems to be walking off the edge, then it simply disappears. Down below, the water may re-emerge as a spring, sometimes far from where it went underground. This underground travel can create strange timing. A spring may surge hours after rain, even if the surface stream looks quiet. Limestone systems also change over time as passages collapse or open, so the route of the water can shift across years. The waterfall you expect may be replaced by silence, and the action continues out of sight. Some disappearing waterfalls seep into porous rock mid-plunge. Not every waterfall reaches the bottom in the way your eyes expect. In certain volcanic rocks and fractured cliffs, the falling sheet can hit a ledge and spread into a thin film. If the rock is porous or heavily cracked, that film can soak in quickly, and the visible flow seems to fade partway down the wall. The water is still moving, but it is moving through the stone. This can happen in dry seasons when flow is low and the surface sheet is thin. It can also happen after long dry periods when rock pores are thirsty, like a sponge that has beam waiting. Later, that same water may trickle out lower down as seeps, or it may feed a spring at the base. These falls can feel like magic, but the explanation is practical. Water follows the easiest route. Sometimes the easiest route is inside the cliff itself. Tidal waterfalls can reverse direction when the sea pushes inland. In places with strong tides and narrow channels, the ocean can behave like a river that changes its mind twice a day. As the tide rises, seawater can surge inland and force currents to flow upstream, even against the usual downhill direction. At a constriction or a step in the channel, that rushing tide can create standing waves, boiling eddies, and a drop that looks and sounds like a waterfall. Then the tide turns, and the whole system flips. What was pushing inland now drains seaward, and the waterfall effect can appear in the opposite direction or vanish entirely. This is not driven by rainfall or mountain snow. It is driven by the pull of the moon and the shape of the coast. Watching a tidal waterfall is like watching a river get remote controlled by the sea. It reminds you that gravity has more than one partner in moving water. Saltstraumen in Norway can form powerful tidal currents like a waterfall. At Saltstraumen, the drama comes from a narrow passage that connects two bodies of water with different levels during tidal shifts. When the timing is right, water rushes through the strait at remarkable speed, and the surface can look like it is collapsing into itself. You see whirlpools, standing waves, and sudden drops that resemble rapids poured into a funnel. It feels like a waterfall turned sideways, because the energy is being released through horizontal squeezing rather than vertical falling. The spectacle is also rhythmic. It builds, peaks, and relaxes on a predictable schedule tied to the tide. For marine life, this kind of current can be both opportunity and challenge. Nutrients and small organisms get mixed and moved, which can attract fish, and that can attract larger hunters. For a visitor, the most surprising part is the source. There is no cliff. The drop is created by geography, tide, and sheer volume trying to fit through a tight space. The world's biggest waterfall system by volume is often called Inga. Some waterfalls impress by height, but Inga is famous for how much water it forces through a dramatic descent. Along the lower Congo River, the flow is enormous, and the river drops quickly through a series of violent rapids and chutes. People often call it a waterfall system because the effect is continuous, as if the river is tumbling down a long staircase. Volume changes the feeling of danger and power. Even a modest change in level can become overwhelming when the river is wide and deep, because there is so much mass in motion. This is why Inga is often mentioned in conversations about hydropower potential, since the energy in moving water scales with both height and flow. It is also a reminder that the most intense river forces on Earth may not be at the most photographed scenic falls. Sometimes they're in remote corridors where the river is simply too big to be tamed. The Congo River's Inga Rapids drop huge water through a gorge. Here, the river is funneled into a tighter space, and that squeezing turns steady flow into violent speed. The gorge forces the water to accelerate, and the surface can become a chaotic landscape of surging waves and rotating boils. Instead of one clear plunge, you get a relentless sequence of drops, standing waves, and rapids that act like a continuous descent. The sound is not a single roar. It is many overlapping crashes that never fully settle. The power also affects the shape of the channel itself. Hard rock walls can be scoured, and boulders can be rolled or wedged into new positions, which further reshapes the rapids. For people, these waters are a boundary as much as a spectacle. They have long influenced travel and settlement because crossing is difficult and dangerous. Inga shows how a river can become an entire terrain, not just a line on a map. Waterfalls can form at the edge of river deltas as channels shift. A delta looks flat and peaceful, but it is constantly rearranging itself. Rivers drop sediment as they slow down, and that sediment builds shallow ridges that steer water into new channels. When one channel suddenly captures more flow, it can cut down faster than its neighbors. The result is a small step, then a drop, and sometimes a brand new waterfall, where you would never expect one. These delta falls can be short, but they are busy. They appear, migrate, and disappear as the river builds one bank while eroding another. After a major flood, the river may abandon a channel entirely, leaving yesterday's waterfall high and dry. In places where deltas meet a tidal coast, the water level can change the look of the drop from hour to hour. It is a reminder that waterfalls are not only mountain phenomena. They can be born in lowlands too, simply because a river cannot stop redesigning its own exit. Some desert waterfalls flow only after rare storms recharge the land. In deserts, a waterfall can be a rumor for most of the year. The cliffs are there, the channels are carved, but the water is missing. Then a rare storm arrives when the ground cannot absorb the sudden downpour fast enough. Dry washes turn into racing streams, and water rushes toward canyon edges that have been waiting. For a short time, a waterfall pours through air that is usually dusty and hot. The contrast can feel unreal. Dark rock becomes glossy, and the canyon echoes with a sound it has not heard in months. These events can also be dangerous because the same surge that creates the waterfall can produce flash floods downstream. Yet they are deeply revealing. They show how a desert still has a river system, even when it is invisible. The landscape remembers water in its shapes, and when the sky finally delivers, the waterfall appears like a curtain being pulled back on a hidden stage. Monsoon waterfalls can surge from trickles to torrents in minutes. Monsoon landscapes can feel calm right up until they are not. Rain hits hard, and it can fall across a whole watershed at once. Small streams that were barely moving can suddenly receive water from every slope and gully upstream. A waterfall that looked delicate can swell into a loud, muscular flow before you have time to adjust your eyes. The speed of the change is part of the wonder. You can watch new side streams appear on cliff faces, each one joining the main drop like an expanding chorus. The water also carries energy and debris, so the color can change and the sound can deepen as the flow thickens. When the rain eases, the waterfall may shrink again almost as quickly, leaving wet rock and fresh scents behind. Monsoon waterfalls teach you that a river is not only a place. It is an event that can switch on fast, then fade when the sky moves on. waterfalls can transport logs, and that wood can batter rock. During high flow, a river can pick up whole trees and send them downstream like drifting battering rams. When those logs reach a waterfall, they may tumble over the lip, jam against the base, or get pinned in swirling currents. Each impact can strike rock with surprising force, especially when the log is waterlogged and heavy. This can chip edges, scrape surfaces, and pry loose blocks that were already cracked. Wood can also change the water's path. A jam at the lip can force flow into a new chute, and that new chute can begin carving its own notch. Down below, trapped logs can act like levers, rocking back and forth with currents and grinding against the pool walls. These seams are brief compared with geology, but they matter. They show how living forests and rivers collaborate in shaping cliffs. A tree that fell in a storm can become a tool in the waterfall's workshop, and the rock remembers the blows. A single flood can rewrite the shape of a waterfall overnight. Most of the time, change is slow enough that you cannot see it. Floods are different. When a watershed releases an exceptional surge, the waterfall is forced to handle more water than usual, and the extra force can exploit every weakness at once. A block at the lip can break away, and the edge can become straighter or more jagged by morning. Sediment can be stripped from the base, exposing bedrock that was buried, or it can be piled into new bars that redirect flow into fresh channels. Side streams may appear temporarily, then vanish when levels drop. Even the plunge pool can be rearranged, with boulders shifted into new positions like furniture moved in the dark. For anyone who studies landscapes, floods are like sudden edits in a long story. They compress years of change into a single night. Visit before and after, and you may feel as if the waterfall has been replaced, even though the river never left. Glacial melt can make a waterfall peak in late afternoon. On a glacier-fed mountain, the daily rhythm of sunlight can control the river like a dial. As the day warms, meltwater increases across the ice surface and within hidden channels inside the glacier. That water takes time to travel downstream, so the strongest flow may arrive hours after the warmest moment. Late afternoon can become the daily crescendo, when yesterday's quiet fall turns louder and fuller, then gradually relaxes into the evening. This pattern can be surprisingly consistent during melt season. Hikers sometimes learn to time their visits, arriving when the sound is at its most powerful. The shift is also a reminder that glaciers are not static blocks. They are plumbing systems that open, close, and reroute water, which can change the timing from one week to the next. A waterfall fed by ice is like a daily report from a frozen reservoir, translated into sound and spray. Snowmelt waterfalls often roar strongest in spring and early summer. When winter loosens its grip, the landscape begins releasing stored water. Snow that sat quietly for months becomes runoff, and that runoff does not arrive all at once. It pulses with warm days, cool nights, and the shifting line where snow turns to liquid. In many mountain regions, this creates a season when waterfalls reach their most dramatic state. The channels are primed, the slopes are saturated, and the river delivers a steady surge that can last for weeks. Later, as the snowpack thins, the same waterfall can shrink, revealing rock ledges that were hidden under a continuous curtain. The seasonal arc can be so reliable that local communities plan festivals, trail access, and viewing points around it. For a listener, this is a powerful idea. A waterfall is not only shaped by geology, it is also shaped by a winter's worth of frozen water, released on a schedule written by temperature and sunlight. Waterfalls can be used to estimate erosion rates over long time. A waterfall is a moving marker, and its movement leaves evidence that can be measured. As it retreats upstream, it often carves a gorge behind it, and that gorge can preserve earlier positions of the lip like milestones. By estimating how far the waterfall has traveled and combining that with clues about timing, researchers can infer how quickly the landscape is being worn down. The timing clues might come from dated sediments, volcanic layers, or other records tied to specific periods. The calculation is never simple because flow changes with climate and because rock strength varies. Still, the approach can reveal whether a valley has been evolving steadily or in bursts driven by floods and shifts in base level. This turns a scenic site into a scientific instrument. The waterfall is not only a result of erosion. It is also a tool for reading erosion, using its own wandering path as a record of work completed. Geologists use waterfall retreat to read landscape history like a clock. Imagine a waterfall as the hand of a clock that moves backward through a valley. Each collapse and retreat nudges it upstream, and the canyon behind it is the trail it leaves on the face of time. When geologists map that trail, they can piece together a story about uplift, river capture, changing sea level, and the strength of different rock layers. A waterfall that has retreated far may suggest a long period of active dam cutting. A waterfall that sits near a fresh step may point to recent change, such as uplift or a shift in river level downstream. Sometimes multiple nick points in one river indicate a sequence of events, like chapters in the same book. This kind of reading is powerful because it links a visible feature to invisible forces. You do not need to see tectonic uplift happening today to know it happened. The waterfall carries the evidence in its position and the shape of the valley behind it. Waterfalls can reveal past climates through the sediments they expose. As a waterfall retreats, it cuts into layers that were built under older conditions, and those layers can hold climate clues. River gravels can hint at ancient flood energy. Fine silts can suggest quieter water, perhaps linked to different vegetation or runoff patterns. In some valleys you can find stacked deposits that reflect cycles of wet and dry periods, preserved like stripes in a cliff. A waterfall also tends to keep exposures fresh by stripping away soil and plants, which makes it easier to see the raw layers. Researchers can then study grain sizes, mineral content, and the order of deposits to infer changes in erosion and water supply over time. Even a listener can appreciate the big idea. The waterfall is not only a force of destruction. It is a natural excavation that reveals what the river used to carry, which is often tied to what the sky used to deliver. Standing near a fall can mean standing beside a cross-section of climate history. Some waterfalls are actually chains of many small steps. In many valleys, the river does not find one dramatic cliff. It finds a rough staircase of resistant rock ribs and boulder ledges, and it drops again and again. Each step is small, but the sequence can run for a long distance, so the river loses a surprising amount of height overall. These step falls often form where the channel is steep and cluttered with blocks that refuse to move, or where bedrock breaks into natural shelves. The experience is different from a single plunge. The sound comes in pulses, and you can hear distinct beats as water hits one basin, then spills into the next. For wildlife, the many pockets create lots of microhabitats, with calmer water tucked between turbulent drops. For people, it can feel like walking beside a river that is always in motion, always descending, never settling. Cascades happen when the river loses height over rough rock beds. A cascade is a waterfall that keeps touching the ground, and that contact changes everything. Instead of freefall, the water tumbles over uneven rock, slides, breaks, then gathers again. The bed might be a jumble of slabs, a rough lava surface, or a channel strewn with anchored boulders. Because the water is constantly colliding with rock, it tends to whip itself into foam and split into many threads, which makes the whole scene feel lively, detailed. Cascades also reveal the shape of the riverbed in a way a sheer drop does not. You can see where the main current prefers to run, where it stalls, and where it suddenly accelerates. After rain, the pattern can change. with new lines of flow appearing across previously dry rock. In a sense, a cascade is a map of friction made visible, showing how water navigates a rough path downhill. Plunge falls drop free of the cliff, barely touching rock. A true plunge is the dramatic idea most people carry in their heads. Water reaches the lip, then it launches into open air, leaving the cliff behind. That clean separation means the falling water can gather speed without being slowed by contact, and it can form a powerful jet or a broad curtain depending on the river above. Plunge falls often feel spacious. You can stand to the side and see air between the water and the wall, which makes the drop look taller and more daring. The plunge also concentrates action at the bottom, where the falling water meets the pool or the boulder field below. That meeting point can be astonishing to watch because the flow goes from smooth and coherent to chaotic in an instant. If you ever want to understand gravity with your eyes, a plunge fall is a clear demonstration. Horsetail falls fan out, then ting back to the slope. This type begins like a normal drop, then it changes its mind mid-descent. The water spreads into a wide, thin sheet, and instead of staying in open air, it drifts back toward the rock and slides down the face. The effect can look like fabric laid over stone, especially when the flow is moderate and the sheet stays smooth. The reason is partly the shape of the cliff. A slanted wall invites contact, and the water is happy to follow it when the path is there. Wind can also play a role, pushing the sheet toward the rock and stretching it into a wider fan. Horsetail falls are wonderful for seeing texture. You notice ripples, waves, and shifting patterns in the sheet, like a living surface. In the right light, the water can glow while the rock behind it stays dark, which makes the fall look almost painted onto the slope. Ribbon falls stay narrow because the river is small and steep. A ribbon fall is slender, concentrated, and often shockingly tall for its width. The stream feeding it may be modest, yet the terrain drops away so abruptly that the water has no time to spread out before it leaves the edge. The result is a thin line that can appear delicate from far away, even though it may be moving fast. This narrow shape also makes ribbon falls sensitive to season. When flow increases, the ribbon can thicken and become more obvious. When flow decreases, it can turn into a faint thread that is easy to miss against bright rock. In dry months, wind may break the ribbon into drifting spray, which makes the fall seem to vanish and reappear as gusts change. Ribbon falls often feel like signatures on a cliff face, written by a small river that found a very dramatic route downward. Block falls keep a wide edge because the channel is broad. When a river approaches the lip as a wide sheet, the waterfall inherits that width. Instead of being funneled into one chute, the water spills across a broad front, creating a thick wall that can feel imposing even at moderate height. This kind of fall is often associated with rivers that have already gathered tributaries, so the flow arrives with confidence and momentum. The wide edge also makes the waterfall readable. You can see the line of the lip, the slight variations along it, and the way different parts of the sheet behave. One section may pour smoothly while another breaks into separate ropes where the rock is rougher. During high flow, block falls can feel especially powerful because there is so much water moving at once. Standing near one is like standing beside a moving building. The scale is not only vertical, it is horizontal too. Waterfalls can become wider as their lip erodes sideways. A waterfall does not always retreat only upstream. It can also expand across its own edge. If the rock near the sides is fractured, or if small side channels begin to steal flow, the waterfall can start nibbling outward. Over time, what was once a narrow chute can open into a broader curtain, and the shape of the drop can change from focused to expansive. This sideways growth can happen in episodes. A storm can drive extra water down the margins, and that can exploit cracks that were previously dry. Later, those cracks may become permanent pathways, widening the fall even when flow returns to normal. This is one reason old photographs can be fascinating. A waterfall you think you know may have changed its outline, not by moving far upstream, but by spreading across a larger section of cliff. The waterfall is editing its own frame, widening the stage it performs on. Some waterfalls split around islands, creating twin curtains of water. When a river carries an island right up to the brink, the waterfall becomes a pair. The main current divides, flows around the land, then drops in two separate sheets, sometimes with a strip of rock and trees standing between them like a divider. The two curtains can feel like siblings with different personalities. One side may be deeper and smoother, while the other is rougher and more broken, depending on which channel carries more water. The space between them can create a dramatic viewpoint, since you can look from one drop to the other and feel the river's decision made visible. These twin falls also show how rivers distribute energy. If the island shifts over time, or if one channel gradually captures more flow, the balance between the curtains can change. A paired waterfall is a reminder that a river is rarely a single line. It is a living network that can split, rejoin, and split again. Multi-tier falls reveal multiple resistant layers in the rock. A tiered waterfall is a vertical journey with chapters. Water drops, lands on a ledge, gathers itself, then drops again. Those ledges often exist because certain layers resist erosion better than the layers between them, so the river pauses on each tough bench before continuing downward. For a listener, the most striking part is how the scene changes from tier to tier. The upper drop might be thin and fast, while the lower drop becomes broader and louder because more side streams have joined. Pools on intermediate ledges can look calm compared with the plunges above and below, almost like the waterfall is taking breaths. Tiered falls also create natural viewpoints. Each level offers a different angle and a different sound, which is why some famous trail systems are built around them. You are not only watching water descend, you are following a river through a sequence of geological thresholds, each one shaping the flow in its own way. A waterfall can be a staircase built by geology itself. Sometimes the landscape provides a set of steps so clear that it looks designed. A river may cross alternating bands of hard and less hard rock, or it may descend along a series of faults and joints that create repeated drops. Instead of one dramatic leap, the water takes the height in segments, with each segment forming its own mini fall and basin. What makes this fascinating is the sense of structure. The steps can be evenly spaced, or they can cluster into groups, which hints at how the rock was formed and fractured. These natural staircases are also a lesson in patience. A river does not need one grand cliff to lose altitude. It can do it through many smaller moments, each one shaped by stone and time. When you stand beside such a cascade system, you are looking at a collaboration. The bedrock laid out the stairs. The river discovered them and made them sing. Waterfalls can create negative ions, though health claims are overhyped. Near crashing water, molecules collide, droplets shatter, and electrical charges can separate in the turbulence. That process can increase the number of negatively charged ions in the air close to the spray. Some people describe the air as feeling crisp or energizing, and that part is understandable because the environment is cool, damp, and full of moving air. The leap from that sensation to big medical promises is where things get shaky. Research does not support sweeping claims that negative ions cure diseases or replace treatment. Still, the setting can change how you feel in simple ways. The roar masks distractions. The air is fresh, and breathing feels easier for many people. When you stand there, you are inside a real chemistry and physics experiment, happening at full scale. The honest wonder is not a miracle cure, The wonder is that water can change the air's electrical character at all. The real benefit is cooler air and fine mist on skin. When water explodes into droplets, evaporation begins immediately, and evaporation pulls heat from the surrounding air. That is why the space beside a waterfall can feel like stepping into shade, even under a bright sun. The mist also settles on your skin in a way that feels instantly refreshing, like a natural air conditioner that never needs a switch. This effect can be strongest in narrow gorges where airflow is guided along the river, keeping the spray circulating instead of drifting away. You might notice your breathing slow, not from any magic in the air, but from comfort. Your body is responding to temperature, humidity, and a steady rhythm of sound. Even nearby stones can feel cooler because spray keeps them damp, and damp surfaces shed heat faster. For a listener, it is a beautiful, practical truth. A waterfall does not only look dramatic, it can change the temperature of the place you are standing in, using nothing but water, air, and time. Waterfall spray can carry scents from wet stone and plants. Smell is part of the experience people rarely describe, yet it is often the first thing you notice when you get close. Water striking rock releases earthy mineral notes, especially if the stone has been warmed by sun and then suddenly cooled by spray. Nearby plants add their own chemistry. Leaves give off green, sharp aromas when mist wets them, and damp soil releases the rich scent many people associate with rain. In forested areas, you may catch hints of resin, bark, and moss, all lifted and mixed by moving air. The waterfall acts like a diffuser, turning local odors into an invisible cloud that drifts outward. That scent can also change with season. Spring growth smells different from late summer dryness, and fallen leaves add their own layer in autumn. It is a sensory map of the surroundings, carried to you on mist, long before you touch the water. Light near waterfalls can shimmer because mist acts like a lens. A curtain of droplets does not sit still, and that constant motion bends light in countless tiny ways. Each droplet can refract, reflect, and scatter sunlight, so the scene can sparkle even when the sky is plain. The shimmer is not only brightness, it is movement in the light itself, as droplets drift, collide, and evaporate. When wind pushes spray across your view, the world beyond can blur, then sharpen, then blur again, as if the air is breathing. In some angles, the mist can brighten shadows under trees or along rock walls, because scattered light fills in darker spaces. Photographers often chase this effect at golden hour, but your eyes can enjoy it with no effort. The waterfall becomes a living light filter, changing the look of the landscape from moment to moment. The rock is the stage. The mist is the lighting crew, always adjusting. Waterfalls can make waterfall rain that falls even under blue skies. On a dry day, you can still feel drops landing on your arms, your hair, and the ground around you. That is spray falling back down after being thrown into the air by impact. The droplets rise in a plume, drift outward, and then gravity wins again, so the waterfall creates its own localized drizzle. This effect can extend farther than people expect, especially when wind lifts the plume and carries it down a trail or across a viewing platform. You might walk through a sunny clearing and still feel wet, as if the sky is playing a trick. The pattern also changes with flow. A stronger plunge throws a higher plume, and a weaker one keeps most droplets close to the base. In colder weather, this rain can freeze on contact and coat surfaces with a thin glaze. It is a reminder that falling water does not end at the bottom. It can take a second flight through the air. Some waterfalls create constant drizzle that supports tiny, local microclimates. The air near a big spray zone can stay humid for long stretches, even when surrounding areas are dry. That humidity can lower daytime temperatures, reduce evaporation from soil, and keep small patches of ground moist enough to support plants that would otherwise struggle. You can sometimes see the boundary with your eyes. The vegetation changes abruptly, and the rocks look darker where they stay damp. In canyons, this effect can stack with shade, creating a cool pocket that feels separate from the larger landscape. Small animals take advantage too. Amphibians may remain active longer in these moist areas, and insects can thrive where water is always present in the air. Over time, this can create a miniature habitat with its own seasonal rhythm, shaped less by rainfall and more by spray. The waterfall becomes a climate engine on a small scale, maintaining conditions that would not exist without that constant plume. Waterfalls can be sacred sites, shaping myths, rituals, and maps. Across many cultures, a waterfall is more than scenery. It can be a boundary between ordinary space and a place set apart. The reasons are easy to understand. Waterfalls are loud, powerful, and visually commanding, and they often sit in natural amphitheaters that feel like outdoor temples. Communities have used them as meeting points, markers for travel routes, and settings for ceremonies tied to water, fertility, cleansing, or renewal. Stories grow around them because they are memorable landmarks and because their presence feels decisive. In some traditions, the mist is treated as a blessing, and the pool below is approached with rules of respect. Even when beliefs differ, the pattern repeats. People return, leave offerings, and tell visitors what the place means. In that way, a waterfall can shape human geography. It becomes a point on the map that carries emotion, lore, and memory, not just coordinates. Many early mills used waterfall energy before modern electricity existed. Long before power lines, people looked at falling water and saw reliable work waiting to be borrowed. By channeling flow into a water wheel, a mill could turn gravity into rotation, and rotation into grinding grain, sawing timber, or pounding cloth. The key was control. Millers built raceways, sluices, and gates that directed water where it was needed, and they learned local river behavior the way sailors learn wind. A small waterfall or a strong rapid could support a whole local economy, because it could work through day and night without getting tired. Mill sites often became hubs, with roads and markets developing around them. If you visit old mill towns, you may still see the stone foundations and channels, even if the machinery is gone. The waterfall's drop was the original motor, and it shaped how communities organized labor and location. Hydropower often begins with the same idea as a waterfall drop. At its heart, hydropower is about height turning into speed. Water stored higher up has potential energy, and when it is released downward through a pipe or channel, it accelerates. That fast-moving water spins a turbine, and the turbine turns a generator that produces electricity. The resemblance to a waterfall is direct. Both involve water descending and converting height into motion. The difference is that a power system tries to capture as much of that energy as possible, while a natural fall releases it into spray, sound, and turbulence. Engineers choose sites where there is dependable flow and a useful change in elevation. Then they build structures to guide water along a controlled path. The result can be efficient and dependable, but it also changes river conditions, which is why hydropower projects involve careful planning, environmental trade-offs. Still, the core concept remains beautifully simple. It is the same thrill you feel at a waterfall, translated into wires and light. Some cities grew around waterfalls because they provided power and trade. A waterfall could offer two things early cities wanted. It offered mechanical power for mills and factories, and it offered a natural limit to navigation that forced goods to stop, transfer, and move again. That stopping point created opportunity. Merchants, boat crews, and laborers gathered where cargo had to be carried around rapids or falls. Over time, warehouses, workshops, and markets clustered nearby. The power source then reinforced the growth, since industries that needed constant energy could set up close to the drop. This pattern shaped many towns in Europe and North America, and it appears elsewhere too, wherever rivers met steep changes in elevation. Even when technology changed, the urban footprint often remained. Old industrial buildings may be converted into museums, apartments, or public spaces, while the waterfall continues doing what it always did. The city becomes a layer on top of the river's geography, and the waterfall remains the original reason the place mattered. Waterfalls can be dangerous because strong currents hide under foam. White water looks like soft froth, but it can conceal fast, heavy flow, moving in strange directions. At the base of a fall, water can circulate back on itself in a powerful hydraulic, which is a recirculating current that keeps pulling floating things toward the plumber. Drop. From the surface, it may look like a calm patch of foam, when the water underneath is churning like a washing machine. Rocks can also hide just below the bubbles, and sudden depth changes can catch even strong swimmers by surprise. This is why rivers near waterfalls deserve extra respect, even when the edge looks wide and inviting. The danger is not drama, it is invisibility. Water is excellent at hiding its own speed. When people get into trouble near falls, it is often because the surface appearance feels gentler than the physics underneath. The smooth lip above a fall can be slippery and deceptive. From above, the river may look like a simple glide, as if it is calmly heading toward a drop with no urgency. The problem is that the rock at the brink is often polished by constant flow, and polished stone can be slick, even when it looks dry. Thin films of water can spread wider than you think, and algae can create a surface that feels like wet glass. Currents near the lip can also accelerate, so a slow-looking river can suddenly tug harder as it approaches the edge. The dangerous part is how ordinary it can seem. There is rarely a warning sound until you are close, and the river surface can appear smooth right up to the moment it disappears. Safe viewpoints exist for a reason, and barriers are not there to spoil the view. They are there because the last few steps toward a waterfall are often the least forgiving. Waterfalls can trap air in caves, creating booming waterfall drums. Behind some waterfalls, recesses and caves form spaces where air can be pushed and pulled by the water's motion. Each impact at the base can compress air, and the next surge can release it, which sets up a repeating pulse. In the right shape of cavity, those pulses can resonate, turning the space into a natural drum. The sound can feel deeper than the waterfall itself, like an extra voice added from inside the rock. People sometimes notice it as a rhythmic booming that comes and goes as flow changes, or as a hollow thump that seems to travel through the cliff. The effect depends on the cave's size, its openings, and how the spray and surge interact with trapped air. It is a reminder that waterfalls do not only make noise in open air. They can play the landscape like an instrument, using hidden chambers as speakers. Waterfalls can sculpt potholes, perfectly round basins in solid rock. In some stream beds near falls, you can find circular holes that look almost engineered, as if someone drilled into the stone with a giant tool. These potholes form when a small depression traps pebbles. Then moving water keeps those pebbles spinning in place. Each rotation grinds the rock a little more, deepening and smoothing the cavity over time. The more consistent the swirl, the more symmetrical the hole can become. Some potholes stay small, like bowls you could hold in your hands. Others grow large enough to step into, with smooth walls that show where the stone has been polished by countless turns. They often appear in clusters, which hints at how water once flowed across the rock surface in multiple spinning pockets. A pothole is a quiet signature of persistence. It shows how repeated motion can carve shapes that look deliberate, even when the only sculptor is water and a few trapped stones. A waterfall can expose a fault line where rocks have shifted. Faults are cracks in Earth's crust where blocks of rock have moved relative to each other. Rivers pay attention to faults because broken rock is easier to erode, and because fault movement can create steps in the landscape. When a river crosses a fault scarp, the change in elevation can become a waterfall, and erosion can then polish the fault zone into a clear, visible feature. In some places you can stand near a fall and see rock layers that no longer line up, offset like mismatched shelves. That offset is a clue that the ground has moved, sometimes many times, over long spans of time. The waterfall becomes a spotlight for tectonics. It brings noise and motion to a place that is otherwise silent, and it clears away soil that might hide the evidence. You are watching water reveal a story written by shifting crust, one exposed wall at a time. In Iceland, waterfalls often reveal lava layers stacked like pages. Iceland is built from repeated volcanic eruptions, and each eruption can lay down a new sheet of basalt. Over time, those sheets stack up, sometimes separated by ash layers or weathered horizons that mark pauses between eruptions. When a river cuts into this pile, a waterfall can form at a tougher ledge, and the cliff beside it becomes a cross-section of volcanic history. You can often see distinct bands, some darker and denser, others more fractured and crumbly. Cones may appear where lava cooled slowly, while rougher textures show where it cooled fast. The waterfall adds motion and sound to a wall that is otherwise still, making the layers easier to notice as your eyes track the drop. It is a rare kind of reading. Instead of words, you read flows. Instead of chapters, you read eruptions. The river is turning Iceland's volcanic past into a visible library. Yosemite Falls can dry nearly away by late summer. In early season, Yosemite Falls can feel like a constant presence, loud enough to hear from far across the valley. Later in the year, the same cliff can look almost quiet, with only a thin thread of water, or sometimes none that you can easily see. This happens because the flow depends heavily on snowmelt from the surrounding high country. As the snowpack shrinks and seasonal streams fade, less water reaches the top of the drop. The waterfall does not lose its cliff, it loses its supply. That change can surprise visitors who expect a permanent torrent, and it reveals an important truth. Many iconic waterfalls are seasonal performers. Their peak show is tied to winter accumulation and spring release, not to a constant spring or a large year-round river. In Yosemite, the valley remains grand either way, but the shift reminds you to think upstream, toward the snowfields that quietly decide the sound of summer. The horsetail fall firefall effect depends on rare sunset angles. On a few evenings each year, when the timing is perfect, sunlight can strike horsetail fall at a low angle and light the water in warm orange tones. From the right viewpoint, the glowing ribbon can resemble molten rock, which is why people call it the firefall effect. The key is alignment. The sun must be low enough, the sky must be clear enough, and the waterfall must have enough flow to catch the light. If the water is too thin, the glow is faint. If clouds block the sun, the moment disappears. This makes the event feel precious because it cannot be scheduled like a show. It is part astronomy, part weather, and part seasonal runoff, all cooperating for a brief window. What looks like magic is actually geometry and timing, and the rarity is the point. Nature is not changing the water into fire. It is briefly changing the light. Waterfalls once flowed on Mars, carved into ancient valley networks. Mars today is cold and dry at the surface, but the planet holds landforms that look strongly shaped by flowing water. Ancient channels and valley networks suggest that liquid water once moved across the landscape, cutting paths downhill in ways that resemble river systems on Earth. In some regions, there are steppe terrains and abrupt drops where water likely plunged, at least during episodes when conditions allowed runoff. The idea of Martian waterfalls is not about a single preserved curtain of water, but about the signatures they would leave behind. like scoured channels, plunge, like basins and eroded ledges. These features help scientists reconstruct a past Mars that may have had precipitation, snowmelt, or groundwater bursts feeding surface flow. Thinking about waterfalls on another planet does something wonderful to the mind. It takes a familiar Earth scene and places it in deep planetary history, where water once shaped red rock under a different sky. On Enceladus, icy geysers act like waterfalls into space. Enceladus is a small moon of Saturn, with an icy crust and a surprising secret beneath it. From cracks near its south pole, jets of water vapor and ice particles erupt outward, forming plumes that escape into space. In a poetic sense, they are waterfalls turned inside out. Instead of water dropping down a cliff, material is launched upward, then spreads into a vast, cold arc. Those particles help feed Saturn's E-ring, which means the Moon is actively supplying material to its planet's environment. The plumes also hint at liquid water below the ice, likely in a subsurface ocean that can vent through fractures. That makes Enceladus one of the most intriguing places in the solar system when people talk about habitability. The wonder here is scale and direction. The same substance that makes waterfalls on Earth can also erupt from ice and fall, not into a pool, but into orbit. As we come to the end of our journey, let the sound of waterfalls linger in your mind like a steady rhythm. Tonight we wandered from the tallest drops to wide, thundering curtains, and we followed rivers as they leapt over cliffs, slipped down stone staircases, and vanished into mist. We traced how waterfalls are shaped by the world beneath them, by hard rock and soft layers, by ancient glaciers, and by sudden events that can redraw a valley in chi. A single day. We met places where spray feeds green pockets of life, where air and water mix into roar and shimmer, and where the land keeps changing, one collapse and one drifting plume at a time. No, you do not have to hold any of it tightly. Let it settle. Imagine a river finding its path without effort, always moving, always releasing what it no longer needs. Picture cool air near the water, a soft dampness on stone, and a steady pulse of sound that asks nothing from you. If you enjoyed this episode, you might like to leave a small note, tap like or subscribe, so you can find your way back whenever you want to unwind. And if you are still awake, there will be another video waiting on your screen. You can let it play and drift onward, or you can save it for another night. For now, allow your shoulders to soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breathing slow until it feels easy and unforced. The day can be done. The river can keep flowing without you watching it. Sleep well, and good night.